details of the candidates, details about the various ways that you can vote, and also importantly details on page 3 about the number of candidates that are to be elected and how it works with the Islands Trust election as well. So just to be clear, we're about to hear from the councillor candidates, and 4 of those people are also candidates for Islands Trust. So you'll be electing 2 members of council to serve as municipal trustees. So the way it works is that the 2 candidates on the ballot for the municipal trustee for the Islands Trust who receive the highest and second highest number of votes and who are elected to council will be appointed Islands Trust municipal trustees. Yeah. So just to be, if you have any questions about that, you can talk to Hope. So with no further ado, I would love to introduce the 9 candidates for council. And before I do that, I also want to mention that one of our candidates, Alison Morse, is unable to be with us today, and I just wanted to read a brief statement from Alison. So, Alison says to you, my apologies for not being at the All Candidates meeting this afternoon. It's an important event. However, as I hope all of you will understand, family is also very important. We experienced the ambulance and water taxi to Lionsgate Hospital in the wee hours of Thursday morning and are waiting for the cardiologist to explain the results so we can find out what's causing Alan's problems. As you know, I always like to make sure all decisions are made based on a thorough knowledge of all the relevant information. Therefore, I want to stay at Lionsgate with Alan to be the patient's advocate while further tests are being done. I've gotten to know many of you during my years on council and was looking forward to meeting those of you here today that I had not met. Hopefully things should settle down over the next few days so I can be back out meeting you. I refer you to my profile in the booklet and my website, and please email me if you have any questions. So that's from Alison Morse, and again, this is the booklet that Alison refers to. Okay. So, the format for this section of the meeting is we will give each of the candidates 2 minutes to introduce themselves to you. We've decided, given the delicate nature of this particular microphone, that the candidates are going to be using their own microphones to speak to you, introduce themselves to you. We'll then move to questions and again give everyone a chance to reply. Okay. So is everybody ready? All right. We're gonna go in alphabetical order and begin with Robin Berger.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming out today. My name is Robin Berger, and I'm running for council with a focus on housing. There's a significant amount of work. My name is Robin Berger, and I'm running for council with a focus on housing. There's a significant amount of work to be done to fill the current gaps in planning and policy needed to mitigate and move forward to address the housing crisis on the island. I'm also running to support continued municipal efforts to preserve our water, natural environment, promote local businesses, and improve transportation. I'm someone who has put in the hard work. I'm a community psychologist and researcher specializing in policy. I wrote an MA thesis on housing policy development for our island, finishing in 2016. I'm currently conducting research. I understand what the community expects from its municipal leaders in the next term, including for housing, an ongoing effort to provide a diversity of housing to meet the needs of all demographics and income levels based on assessed community need without forsaking one group for another. Transparency and ongoing community consultation to ensure all voices are considered, especially with the development of our community lands, and to provide a strong leadership approach to addressing housing adversity in our community, as this situation is critical. We have lost far too many islanders due to lack of housing options. Our policy protection against this loss. I'm running as an independent. I have dedicated much of my life as a volunteer in this community, and it would be an honor to have the opportunity to serve on council if elected.
Thank you, Robert Berger. Next up, Sue Ellen Fast.
Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Fast and I'm running for council again and the Islands Trust again. I've been on the island for about 25 years, for those who don't know me. I've been a commuter and a renter, and my husband and I have raised our son here on Bowen. We work from home, from our home office, as consultants, so we're independent, small business. Last 4 years I've served on council and Islands Trust. I found it really positive and challenging, and it's been an honor to serve you. I've worked hard, been on committees ranging from internet to emergency planning, sewer to climate, communication, library, transportation, and Parks, Trails, Greenways Advisory Committee, which is something I've served on for many years in different ways. I also bring reports and recommendations to council, so you'll find things that I've brought to the council agenda, for example. Collaboration beyond our shores. I'm on the BC Municipal Climate Leadership Council, and I'm on the Ocean Watch Task Force that I was appointed to by this council. That's for Howe Sound. And I'm on the steering committee of the Marine Reference Guide, which is a new project that you'll be hearing about shortly. Islands Trust, to be part of that federation of islands like ours, but scattered all over Howe Sound and Southern Gulf Islands, is a privilege. And I think it's just great to be entrusted with that mission of protection, the special part of the Salish Sea. We're like a green belt between Vancouver and Victoria and the southern Vancouver Island. So I think I love the chance to protect wildlife, unique island communities, and the beauty that we share. Priorities: manage growth well, the OCP, climate, transportation, through transportation, affordable housing, parks, trails, and beaches. I think I'm just hitting my stride. I'll be working in the public interest. Thank you.
2 minutes for David Hocking.
Does this work? Thanks, Andrea. Well, back 13 years ago, I decided to run for council. So I thought it'd be fun to have a look at my old brochure, see what I said back then, to see what the issues were. And lo and behold, sadly I guess, they're much the same as today. Affordable housing to maintain our island diversity, a community centre, and clustered housing and new developments to retain natural areas. So why are we so slow in getting things done? I don't know. But I think the good news, as I feel, is that our current council has started to get things right. Let's look at housing. Some dedicated volunteers and council have made really good progress putting together a lot of the necessary pieces to make this move forward. Really important was a workshop in June, 50 people looking at the community lands. There was full support there for a wide variety of multifamily homes on our community lands, clustered around pathways to protect natural areas. So to me, the message was clear. We need to focus on Bowen-style multifamily homes in Snug Cove. So if elected, I'll bring together our excellent nonprofit who's working on housing, other levels of government, and developers to get started right away. What about a community centre? We've got a good plan. But every one of the last 3 councils had what they thought was a good plan at the end of their term. Then the next council thought they had a better one, ditched the old one and started over. You know the result. So I say, let's work with the plan that we've got, that's been developed by council and volunteers, and get it across the finish line so that after all these years of wheel spinning, we'll have a community centre for all of us. What about clustered homes to protect our forests? Along with others, and I just heard Gary talk about it, I've been advocating for an approach called conservation development, which does just that. When we have so much pressure for new development, by focusing in the cove when possible, and clustering homes together in new developments, we leave large connected areas of forest intact. We can protect the natural areas in many ways to find who we are and why we love to live here. Oh, my time's up. There are all kinds of other challenges I'd like to address, so for more details, have a look at my website and my brochure. Thanks a lot.
I'm going to stand up if I may, because those chairs seriously lean back. And I remember standing here 4 years ago, which sure leaves an impression on the mind, because we were actually on that side, and you were all on this side. Last year was better because we were closer to the exits if you got mixed up. I'm Michael Kale. I'm running to be re-elected for council and for Island Trust. And firstly, before getting into any issues, I'd actually like to thank my council colleagues, all 6 of them. Yes, we've argued, sometimes. Yes, we've debated, frequently. Those discussions have never been vindictive or acrimonious. In fact, I think all of my colleagues will agree that they learned much over the 4-year period, and we were able to get things done. Now, needless to say, there is still a great deal to be done. During my time, I've had the opportunity to sit on your advisory committee, economic development, our SNUGCO working group, internet connectivity, human resources, and finance. Many issues appear on the surface to be very simple. I think the first thing we as councillors learned is that they are in fact in a small community, deeply, deeply interconnected. And the challenges your council face now may not be the challenges that we face over the next 4 years. In fact, almost certainly, new challenges will arrive. So in this complex world of ours, and this complex island of ours, I look forward to doing everything that I can in a totally impartial, independent manner to achieve what this island really needs for its sustainable future. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Where's Gordon Gannon? Over there. Can you hear me? Good. I took a similar approach in thinking about today to what David did. And I look back at the 2014 All Candidates meeting. And at that meeting, I listed 10 reasons for voting for me for council. And what prompted that approach was my sense that people sometimes don't vote for the details of a person's platform, but they instead vote for the person and what they think they'll be able to do, working in collaboration with others over the next 4 years. So back in 2014, I listed my characteristics as being, I read well, I make connections, I have committee experience, I like numbers, and I'm a comparatively quiet person. I think that's changed a little. Today, I'm going to add 5 more characteristics to that list based on my experience in council. I listen, I spot gaps, I do my research, and I share it. I monitor performance, and I finish things. So that's me. And you can read more in the information booklet and on my Facebook page and website, or give me a call. What about my platform? Every single candidate here cares about Bowen and housing and transportation. Those are givens, and we'll work on those together. My priorities are, the things that I'll focus on in addition to those, are to continue to enhance municipal communications, to plan for improved infrastructure, to secure rural designation for Bowen Island. That's super important. Good, you get that, yay. To develop staff capacity to quickly respond to funding and partnership opportunities, to work on policy to enable housing and other priorities, and to help protect our green space through a variety of means, including conservation development. So I'm asking for your support on October 28th. Thank you.
Lawrence Phillips.
I like to put in a funny spot. It's all right. Break the tradition. Can everybody hear me? No. How about now? In 2003, Rachel and I moved to a small house in Blue Water. I remember that drive down Bowen Bay Hill very clearly.
It seemed impossibly long, and I remember thinking, we're moving into the middle of nowhere. Over those first few years, we were repeatedly told that you were not from Bowen until you had lived through 3 winters. Well, it's been 15 winters. And over that time, Rachel and I have married, had 2 beautiful children. My son Jacob is 10, and my daughter Delilah is 6. Both went to family place, daycare, and preschool at the Children's Center, and are now students in this very school. Rachel has worked as an ECE at the Children's Center for 11 years, and I have now been ready for over 5. 2.5 years ago, we were fortunate enough to buy our own home out in Bluewater. Every day, we feel lucky to have found this community, to work here, raise our children here, and call it our home. My family is an example of how our community grows and changes, how it moves forward from one generation to another. It would be a shame if we were some of the last people to be afforded that opportunity. We are in the midst of a housing crisis. We have watched over the past few years as countless members of our community have had to leave due to a lack of affordable housing. My wife and I face that same question. Having moved multiple times over the course of 12 years, facing ever-increasing rent with ever-limited supply, we found ourselves in a 2-bedroom basement suite on a summer rental. We had 3 months. We spent countless nights lying awake weighing up the possibilities. Are we going to have to quit our jobs? Pull our children out of school? Where are we going to go? I paint this picture so that you can know the reality faced by many in our community. A community that prides itself on being friendly, neighborly. A community where you know when you're making dinner and you don't have an egg or flour, you can knock on your neighbor's door and they will help. I am standing before you today telling you our neighbors need your help. But it is more important than eggs, it is more important than milk. Our neighbors are losing their homes. If you elect me, I will work tirelessly to help create a comprehensive, multi-pronged, affordable housing strategy that includes encouraging individuals to build secondary suites through amendments to the secondary suite bylaw, tax incentives for those who build and rent out affordable long-term units, using tax dollars from Airbnb rentals to fund our affordable housing reserve, and most importantly, build affordable housing units on community lands. A vote for me is a vote for affordable housing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Williamson. I'm running for council and for the Islands Trust. A few weeks ago, I went to a talk by Professor Jack Little about the resistance to development proposals on Bowen Island in the 1970s. I was so surprised to hear just how close we came to taking a completely different path. There was talk of housing being built for 50,000 people on Bowen Island. Fortunately, such talk now seems absurd. Islands can only take so much. Whereas in cities like Vancouver, they push at the edges into green space and farmland. But you can't do that on an island. In the 1980s and 90s, I was doing PhD research into economic development on an island in Thailand, where I witnessed an utter transformation. Land values had skyrocketed, and for some that was very good. But for many others, it meant they had to leave, and they did. I want to pay more attention to Bowen Island's economy. I do think that the economy is at the center of so much. We take it for granted, but the way we have our economy, the way we build our houses, the kinds of jobs we create, is central to the kind of community we create and the way we live within this environment. We could aspire to become an island example of environmental sustainability in water management, in land use planning, in our network of paths and trails, in public transport, and in housing policy and house construction. I want to work for high-speed internet on Bowen and for the kinds of jobs that this will make possible. I don't need to tell you that Bowen Island attracts dynamic people, but I do want you to believe that we can build an island economy on creativity, hospitality, and sustainability. We can be an example to many. Doing these things will be great for our island, for the community, and for the island economy. I'm a board member of a couple of organisations, including the Bowen Island Arts Council, where we have long advocated for a multi-use community hall. We are now closer to seeing that realised, and I am committed to seeing a community centre project succeed with federal funds or provincial funds and no extra tax burden. Performing arts will be able to play a greater role in our cultural life and the economy.
Peter, that's 2 minutes.
I'm seeking a place at the table as Council sets its agenda for the next 4 years, and I'd like us to develop an island vision to carry us forward into the future. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see so many people out. My name is Rob Wyman, and I'm running for a position on council. A bit about me: I live on the north end of Carney Lake with my wife and my son, who attends Rockridge Secondary. He's in his final year. I'm also lucky to have a brother and sister-in-law and a little niece on island. During the day, I work for the North Vancouver Recreation Commission. I run their fitness facility at Henry Jerome. And on my off time, I sit on a couple of boards on the island. I sit along with David, who's the chair, and Sue Ellen, who's our council rep on the Bowen Island Transportation Advisory Committee, the Ferry Advisory Committee, the BoFest board, and I also marshal and organize our yearly parade. In my past life, before I moved to Bowen, I was very involved in a number of community sustainability boards, working on transportation, sustainable development, a bit of work around forest preservation. And in 2011, I was elected to the Vancouver School Board, where I was chair of staff and personnel, vice chair of our facilities department, and I did a lot of work around food in our school systems, and also active and safe routes to school for our kids. I don't need to tell anybody here how special this island is. I think that's why we're all here. But we've heard some of the challenges that we have come before us. Some of us may have had kids that missed the ferry last week because it was an overload. Some of us maybe are over 2 cars because we don't have great options for alternative transportation. We have some significant projects coming up, the community center, the fire hall. I believe that with my background, my experience, and my dedication, and also my love for this island, that I can be a valuable part of a council team that can help guide us through some of these big decisions we need to make. And I hope on October 20th, I'll get your support to be part of that team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. 2 minutes. It's hard, and y'all did it. Now we're going to move to the part of this session that is Q&A. What we're going to do is this. There are 12 questions, 10 that have been pre-submitted and 2 from the door, so to speak. And each person answering the question will have 1 minute to respond. We will have 5 candidates answering each question. And so what I'm going to say, candidates, is if there's a question that you don't get a chance to reply to and you're burning, you'll have just 30 seconds at the end to do that. So if there's something you really, really, really need to address, hold it to the end, okay? Let's get into it. I've got a very complicated chart of how I'm going to do this. I'm going to worry about it, you don't have to, okay? So, question 1. And we're going to be starting with Robin Berger on this one. So, being an island municipality, Bowen has a unique ecosystem that most municipalities don't encounter. What environmental issue is your highest priority? Robin Berger. Closer, yeah.
Water, as this is a finite and with development on the island over time, as well as climate change, it's very important to conserve and protect our water resources. In terms of advocating, I would support conservation measures, particularly in the summer months, certain areas of the island as well, on certain islands, parts of the island, as well as with future housing development such as conservation development. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start here too. My highest priority being an island, I think we have to be more careful with an island. We can't just go back further to find more fresh water, for example. And with climate change, that's even more of an issue. I think that my biggest priority might be, besides the kinds of conservation that we do all the time, and having been part of conservation development on Bowen since back before Quarry Park, I've got a track record in that. I think the highest priority has to be logging. I think that we heard from the Fire Smart people the other night that logging on Bowen could be a real challenge, especially in a climate change situation, and I will do my best to keep logging away.
So we just moved down. What was that? Okay.
Yes.
Bowen's different. I think we've all talked about water, and I want to talk a bit more about water. Bowen's different from other communities because our water only comes from here. If you're in Vancouver or Richmond or whatever, the water comes from the North Shore Mountains, and other people are looking after that. For here, the water that we get is only the water that lands on our island, and that's why Sue Ellen said it's really important not to have logging. Because what logging does, it takes away the forest, and the forest is what slows down the water. The water wants to move downhill, follow gravity. If it goes fast, it doesn't get into the rock. If it goes slowly, it can trickle down into our underground reservoirs, and that's the water that we need. So that water is really important. As Sue Ellen said, with climate change getting hotter, longer summers, it's going to be trouble. The one other thing, we're obviously an island, we're surrounded by water. That water is really great, and we're really happy to see the return of whales. Many of you have seen Bob Turner's videos. They're just fantastic to see the return of the whales and the life that we have here. We have to look at the things that we can do to protect that, and it's our shorelines that are really important, and the shallow waters and the eelgrass. Where my time's up. There you go. Thanks a lot.
So Michael and then Maureen.
I wonder in view what David has said and Sue Ellen. I think that speaks for itself. But this logging issue is probably our most immediate because you see we have no long-term certainty. When we were in Whistler at the municipal conference, the only long-term certainty we got was, I think, October the 20th, which I didn't find very reassuring. So the part of the question says, how are you advocate for this priority? Well, we're going to have to ensure that we have long-term certainty on this particular issue. And if necessary, we're going to have to mobilize every citizen on this island to write to their MLA to outline the Bowen position. Because if we do that, people will listen. Politicians at a provincial level will listen. At a federal level will listen. And that is how we will gain certainty and advocate for it.
I agree with pretty well everybody so far that it's logging is our highest priority for all those reasons related to water, to soil retention, but also to the economy of our island and to our enjoyment of the island. Our council's been doing a lot of work advocating already on this issue, as has the majority of our community. And last summer was extraordinary in terms of community involvement. We have, council has met with the responsible minister, Minister Donaldson of Flynn Road. We're also planning to meet with Minister Heyman of Environment and Climate Action. And the third piece of that is Metro Vancouver. Metro Vancouver does not allow logging in its parks. And that's a really critical point for us to recognize going forward in terms of our relationship with Metro Parks.
Thank you. So we're going to move to question 2. And this question will begin with Lawrence Phillips and come down and around back to Sue Ellen Fast. I'll ask the question. Bowen Island adopted its first 20-year transportation plan this year. What do you think are the 2 biggest priorities in the plan?
I have to admit that I'm not 100% familiar with the transportation plan. You can't hear me? No. My time's going to run out again. I have to admit that I'm not 100% familiar with the transportation plan, but I would say that the number one issue is, of course, that we are a completely car-dependent community, and we need to do all that we can in improving our transportation infrastructure, improving our bus service, lobbying Translate to increase funding for improved bus service on the island to get people out of their cars.
Two things. First of all, getting people out of their cars so they can walk around, which means parks, means trails and paths along the roads or other routes so that we don't have to drive. We can cycle, we can walk, and we can get around more pleasantly. I think that's a great thing for us to be doing. I'm glad that it's in the plan there. It's very strongly support that. The other thing I think we need to do is enable people to get into town without using their cars, and it seems also important that we don't have to use the ferry so much. We can have a direct ferry, a direct passenger link between the island and downtown Vancouver. That would be my second priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First off, I do sit on the TAC, and I was very excited when our transportation plan was passed, because in the past we didn't have a plan. We were able, one of our staff said it's a bit of a shotgun approach, and I would say that's fairly accurate, and it was a bit reactionary. Now we have something that we can work with and move forward on, and 68% of people surveyed on our last trip survey on transportation options wanted something other than the car, but they didn't feel they had the options to move around the island. So there's some really progressive things in our plan. One is Cross Island Pathway, which is almost 87% going to be externally funded, the first chunk of it. We mentioned some talk about potentially a pedestrian ferry to the Seabus terminal, working better with Peter and his bus to have better connections between the island and downtown, and just taking a bit of a different approach and not just looking at always meeting demand in the Cove, but looking at what's causing demand and how can we rejig our system to give people the options that they really want. And it's not always going to be the car. We need to have some other options out there. Thank you.
Back over to you, Robin.
For me, the two biggest priorities in the plan are addressing ferry overloads, including passenger traffic and improvements to local transportation links, park and ride, and connections including buses on island in West and North Vancouver. Consistent water and land taxi services are also needed for islanders' local partnerships.
Thanks. I'm delighted with the transportation plan and the chance I've had to work on that a little bit. Thanks everybody for your input to the plan. As soon as the council adopted the plan, the grants started to roll in for the multi-use pathway, and that's the biggest priorities, I think, are a foot passenger ferry or something to help take the pressure off the ferry here. So if you look in the last council agenda, you'll see a report and recommendations I brought forward from the Transportation Committee about asking TransLink, who runs the Seabus. The other one is an electric ferry, and BC Terminals on the Horseshoe Bay side is being reconfigured, redone, and I think that's an opportunity for us to push for that Horseshoe Bay terminal to become a transit hub. So it's easier and makes life better to get around.
Thank you. Question 3 will begin with David and will end with Peter Williamson. Question 3, what are 2 priorities in the 2018 Island Plan that you feel should be continued in the next term? 2 priorities from the 2018 Island Plan.
Well, there's some obvious ones, which is the fire hall and the community center. And so they're really important, but there's some other things. The Island Plan also talks about improving the opportunity for diverse housing so that more of our people can stay on the island. So I've got Those three things are obviously really important. I'm glad that they're in the island plan. We need to keep working on all three of them, not two, three. Actually, not two. I'll move on.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, the things that you mentioned, I'd love to see the medical centre actually up, running, open and going. I would also like to see, and it's down as one of our initiatives, I'd like to be able to sell some, and I repeat, some of our community lands. There is a real cost that we pay in interest payments. It's been $550,000 since 2006. And this year, because we turn to paying principal and interest, it's going to go up considerably more. It would be very helpful indeed to get that burden off the municipal back. And I say some community lands. So if we can add that to our list, and I'm sure you're going to hear more from my colleagues.
Well, I think pretty well all of the priorities in the island plan can be carried over, except for those that have been completed. The capital projects, for sure, the fire hall, the community centre, the water treatment plant, which actually isn't mentioned anywhere in the island plan and ought to be. The work has certainly been proceeding with it. And then the second, they actively support diverse housing. If I was going to add a third, I would draw your attention to a priority that says enabling community-driven initiatives. And that relates to a policy that we have that we established in 2016 for collaborative